Welcome to Sense and Sustainability, your podcast channel for sustainable procurement. We hope you like what you hear. Please go to www.iso2400.org for more information, learning resources, tools, and much more.
Hello, I'm Sean McCarthy, Director of Action Sustainability Community Interest Company, and I'm delighted to introduce you to a podcast that I actually recorded on LinkedIn a little while ago with Manta Ray EV. They're a company that have a really innovative and exciting software solution for those people that drive electric vehicles. And I've been reflecting on the last 4.5 years as an electric vehicle owner and some of the trials and tribulations that we have when we try to use public charging systems. There was also a really interesting intervention from a lady from the Netherlands that was actually describing the systems there, the public charging systems there, that actually work really well and seem to be a lot better than we have in the UK. Anyway, I do hope you enjoy this podcast. It's all about electric vehicles, which are the future. Thank you.
Welcome, everybody, to our LinkedIn audio event. Thanks a million for joining us. Sean, welcome. I think you know Sham a little bit. Meet Sham. And
Hi, Sham.
Hi, Sean. Nice to meet you.
Great to see you, Sean. Thank you so much for joining. Sean, tell us a bit about yourself.
Okay. Yeah, so I'm Sean McCarthy. I had a long career in corporate procurement before I really got into sustainability, but I guess that was back in the mid-90s when I was Director of Procurement at Heathrow Airport, and we were trying to get permission to build Heathrow Terminal 5. And a lot of the pressure from the local authorities was, well, we want you to do more business in the local area, which of course is a big procurement professional, that's not something you do. What we did do, though, is to actually hire in some brokerage to help smaller businesses do business with our tier one suppliers. And it was a small business that was doing that work called Business to Business. The managing director at the time and owner of that business in 1995 was Ian Heptonstall. And one way or another, I've been working with Ian ever since. In 2006, I got to a point where I didn't have time to have a job anymore. So I packed in my job. I did two things. I started the business that I still co-own with Ian, Action Sustainability. I also took a role on the London Olympics. So I chaired something called the Commission for a Sustainable London 2012. And the way that came about is that the bid for London Olympics had the promise to be the most sustainable games ever. And there was one line in the bid that said, and we will appoint an independent commission to provide assurance over that sustainability. And I got to chair that commission for the best part of 8 years. So that was quite an experience working with politicians and big sponsors and all sorts of different people around sustainability in London 2012. What my business does now, Action Sustainability, I started it as a social enterprise, and we still have that social enterprise element to our business. And the way that we fund that is we donate 2.5% of the revenue of our trading business into the social enterprise, Action Sustainability Community Interest Company. We've done loads of things around sustainable procurement. That's our thing, building the body of knowledge around sustainable procurement. But in 2013, I led the UK delegation in developing ISO 2400, which is the global standard for sustainable procurement. And at the end of that 4-year process, to actually share knowledge and word out there about the standard. So I offered to do that as part of our social enterprise mission. So now we host ISO2400.org, which is incredibly successful, very international platform that enables people to learn and share and self-assess around sustainable procurement. The commercial part of my business does three things. So we're consultants in a fairly traditional sort of consultancy model. We help our clients procure more sustainably, manage their supply chains more sustainably, and we have a lot of expertise in carbon and social value, ethical procurement, modern slavery, human rights, those sorts of things. We run the Supply Chain Sustainability School, which is a collaborative initiative in the UK construction sector, where we have 205 companies coming together with a mutual interest in upskilling their supply chain in sustainability. And we trained 24,000 people in the last 12-month period. In the period now, April to August, we trained 19,000 people. So we expect to really smashed the 24,000 this year. That's a massive initiative. We also have schools now in Australia. We have a school in France for off-site construction. We'll be launching a school in Ireland in January of next year. I've just got off a call talking about a school in India. We're talking about doing something in the United States. So we think we can really kind of internationalize that model. And then finally, we have a piece of cloud-based software that enables our clients to measure and manage the sustainability performance of their supply chain. So we kind of provide a holistic service from helping clients with policy, strategy, implementation planning, upskilling their supply chain.
I've never heard such a broad introduction of experience. It just comes, that's what sort of attracted me initially, Sean, that's how we got to meet on this. And one thing I haven't asked, Sean, is that I was intrigued from your journey was that obviously going from a corporate sort of fossil-based economy, you've gone into sustainability. What was the turning point that transitioned that journey, if I may ask this?
No, that's a really good question, because you're right. I worked in the aviation sector for 11 years. For 10 years before that, I worked for Shell. and before that, I worked for a supplier into the oil and gas sector. I guess for me, it was a fairly slow burn, because when we were doing the Heathrow Terminal 5 work back in the mid-90s, I kind of saw that as it wasn't really, if I'm perfectly honest, sort of doing the right thing. It was just like, get this public affairs director off my back because she keeps nagging me about doing business in the local community. But then there was a slow realization. I bought all of the electricity for 7 airports in the UK, which, believe me, is a lot of electricity. By doing it well, I saved the company tons of money. I think I delivered a saving of something like £4 million in one deal, the 7 airports. And that got the attention of the chief executive. It also highlighted to me that actually the cheapest unit of electricity you buy is the one that you don't buy. And as an airport business running 7 airports in the UK, we were incredibly wasteful. So the chief exec asked me to, very impressed with the work that I'd done, to consolidate the whole procurement and management of utilities across the business. A gentleman called Mike Clasper, quite a forward-thinking chief exec, said, tell you what I want you to do for me. I'd like you to develop a carbon strategy. So, right, okay, yes, sir, I can develop a carbon strategy. This was in 2000, and nobody was developing carbon strategies at the time. So I think, if I'm honest, what attracted me was the newness of it. I mean, I was doing e-commerce in the mid-90s. I developed a little Mickey Mouse e-commerce system that actually replicated down phone lines before there was an internet. So I've always liked new things. And for me, the whole world of sustainability was something new. And then, of course, the more that you get into it, the more people you meet, and the more you understand some of the issues, which weren't as well understood at the time, let's be honest, the more you realise it's the right thing to do. And also it's where growth is in a business. You know, if you're not starting to get into this whole world of sustainability now, you're going to be left behind. So it's something about business success. It's something about always pioneering and doing something new. And it's something about the right thing to do.
Wow, wonderful. So Sham, I know that Sham reached out to you because you have a brand ambassador program with Manta Ray, and we know that you do so much great work. Sham, tell us, what was it that you felt was important from Sean's perspective of what he does?
I think for me, the key thing is that we're trying to drive a community-based organization and a platform, Sean. And I think when I saw your journey of how you've come from the corporate giants into sustainability, it's a huge transition, not just culturally, but mindset-wise. And I think that's the same thing what we're doing. All 3 founders of Manta Ray come from corporate consultancy background, but we've all been touched by, you know, it's been a slow burner, Sean, just like yourself. You know, it's been slowly revealing how things are changing. I think I saw that sort of synergy in the journey somehow. That's the pattern I saw. And I think that's what drew for me to sort of reach out to Sean, and Sean very quietly nicely gave me his time. And I think that's the key thing is the community aspect is key for us, really. And just like today, it's a small community of discussions we're having, but it's how we make people feel around the community, safe, secure way of using the platform for the longevity and for future generations, really. So I think that's what really drew me, Sam, towards talking to Sean. I don't know if Sean, that was what I thought. That's what I sensed. I hope that's the same thing that you felt as well when we reached out.
Yeah, very much so. I mean, I think we need to do so much to get to this net zero ambition. And then, when we kind of think about, the trend towards EVs at the moment, but it's much more than that. And as an EV driver myself for the last 4.5 years, I'm continually frustrated by the lack of charging infrastructure, the lack of information about charging infrastructure, the availability when you get there because the damn things don't work. And so, we really do have to get much better at this if we're going to take things forward. And, I advise big corporate clients all the time that are talking about transitioning their fleets and their logistics, etc. But, that there needs to be better services and better information to make that happen.
Yeah.
And can I just mention, because you're on the different profile, we can't see your OBE. Can you tell us about that? How did you get the OBE?
Yeah, apologies for the profile being wrong. The OBE was primarily around my work on the Olympics, and it was a tough gig because being chair of an independent, it was a small organisation. I had 3 staff, and I had a commission of 12 people that were experts in various different aspects of sustainability, all volunteers. And I reported directly to the Secretary of State for Culture, Media and Sport and to the Mayor of London. They were 2 of 4 people that made up something called the Olympic Board. The other one was Lord Coe, Sebastian Coe, for those old enough to remember his achievements as an athlete, and Colin Moynihan, who was chair of he was another Lord Moynihan, as chair of the British Olympic Association. So that was a really powerful position to be in. But what I found very quickly is at some point or another, everybody's going to hate you. The civil servants hated me because I could talk directly to the ministers, and that's absolutely the last thing they wanted. The delivery bodies hated me because if they were doing something, or if I was looking at something that I felt was not adequate, then I was able to tell the truth in public, and they really didn't like that. You would think the NGOs would like me, but they didn't initially because they just thought I was another barrier in the way of them getting at the truth. The sponsors, sometimes they liked me if I said nice things about them, but they didn't like me if I didn't say nice things about them. So it was kind of quite a tough role. It was quite a high profile as well. I used to do a lot of media and TV and print journalists and what have you talking to me. So I think what I managed to do was to kind of tread that path very carefully, I suppose. And then, it was after the Games. It was in the Queen's Honours List in 2013, which is, again, quite an apocryphal story. I'd got back from a long trip to Australia. There was this letter, brown envelope, on Her Majesty's service, dead important. I thought it was a ruinous tax bill. It's the only thing I could think of that it might be, but it turned out to be a letter from the Prime Minister saying you'd been recommended for an honour. That was just an amazing thing. I didn't expect it. I still have no idea how I got it. I don't know who nominated me. I don't know who wrote letters of support. I just got this letter through the post, and then eventually went along to an investiture at Windsor Castle with Princess Anne. And she was fantastic. I'd met her before because she was involved in the Olympic movement, but she'd obviously been well briefed on what I did. And it's just been the most surprising thing. I really didn't expect it to happen.
Oh, congratulations! That's a huge achievement.
Thank you.
It's really cool. So Sean, how have you found driving an EV? Like, what made you get one in the first place?
What made me get one in the first place? Well, partly kind of what I do. I'm a sustainability consultant, so I really do need to walk the walk, as it were. And obviously, in the early days of EVs, there weren't really, kind of cars that seemed very attractive to drive, if I'm perfectly honest, until Jaguar brought out the I-Pace, and I went, I want one of those. So I got one, and I'm on my second one now, and I love it. So I think it was mostly, as I say, really walking the walk. And, I can't really turn up to, to see a client or turn up to an event or something in a gas guzzling diesel. So the EV was the right way to go. I wouldn't go back. I wouldn't want to go back to a car with an engine. They're noisy and horrible things. Some of them have like waggly stick things that you're supposed to waggle to make it go at different revs of the engine and all that sort of stuff. So, yeah, I'm really enjoying the EV. For most of my journeys, I mean, the Jaguar's got a realistic range of around about 260 miles. So most journeys I do, it's good for that. But I do travel. I live in the south of England, and I do travel up north to family, etc. And that's where I need to really get involved with public charging. The first one, I got the first one 4.5 years ago. The range anxiety was just like incredible, really, really amazing. But now I'm quite relaxed about it. I'm just having a plan to say where do you need to go for the next charging points. Then when I charge at home, I've got solar panels on the roof, and I've got the technology, the charging technology that talks to the solar panels. So I can pretty much charge my car up from the sun on a nice day like today. And what's not to like. So there is the economic benefit as well. But for me, it's much more about the right thing to do, and also EVs are great cars to drive. They're really obviously silent. They've got fantastic torque and acceleration if you want to use it. But it's the sort of car that actually you don't really have to drive it fast. It doesn't sort of want you to drive it fast because it's so relaxing. So, yeah, safe, efficient, a nice experience for me.
Yeah, I don't have one yet. Okay. But from joining these weekly LinkedIn audio rooms, I'm learning so much. Sham, what you?
It's interesting. When we were speaking last time, Sean, I remember one of the things you highlighted was that the range anxiety, because I got to confess, I'm not an EV driver at the moment. And purely the reason is because of range anxiety and the uncertainty of driving the family around, and planning is quite difficult sometimes. But I think things are getting improving better and better. Hearing your story that it's not much of a range anxiety at the moment, but it still is for some, depending on where you are in the country. And I think it's getting less and less, but the problem's still there. And I think hearing about how you've managed to do it in your second car is quite refreshing and promising, because that's what we're trying to do, is remove the adoption rate, as low as possible, so that more and more can use the road safely, securely, in a safe manner, and be comfortable and enjoy the ride. Like you said, it's not about racing and having power. It's about being comfortable and safe and enjoying the quietness and pleasantness. And I think the nearest I can presume it's the same experiences, like when you're in a hot air balloon, you can't hear anything in stillness, I presume. That's my thought.
Yeah, I guess it is. And yeah, as I say, you do need to plan. If you're on a long journey, you do actually need to plan, but you kind of get to know, I take kind of regular routes up and down the country. So I know where the good charging points are. But if you're going somewhere new, then it is a problem, and I'm very interested, obviously, to understand how your product rolls out and how it compares, because I think most EV drivers use that map at the moment. It's not the most accurate, and you do tend to arrive at locations to find either the charging points are full or they don't work or whatever. So there's the technology is certainly not as good as it could be in terms of providing information, but the infrastructure is improving. I mean, on Thursday, I'm going up to the NEC in Birmingham to talk at a conference. So I took a look on ZapMap to see if there was any EV charging. And there's hundreds of charging points at the NEC, literally hundreds. So I was very, very refreshed and inspired to hear that. But then I went to actually our own event, the Supply Chain School event in Coventry last week at the Coventry Building Society Arena. It's the second time we've done an event there. I don't live far from it, so I don't really need to charge up. But I always ask, wherever I go, have you got charging points? And last year we went to the event, they didn't have any. And this year they still haven't got any.
Yeah.
And it calls itself a sustainable venue. It's like, oh, come on.
Yeah.
So some organisations get it and others don't. And that's, that can be frustrating. I know there are technical constraints, particularly for fast chargers where you need a three-phase supply, and the energy infrastructure isn't quite there sometimes. But it really is, for me, it's an obvious investment that needs to be made, particularly with premises where people might stay for some time. So, you go to the NEC, the chances are you're going to be there for most of the day. Well, you can plug into one of hundreds of 7 kilowatt chargers and get your car charged up in the day. Or you can plug into a rapid charger for a couple of hours and then move it after it's fully charged. And it gives you those options. And I think it's really important that we have those. And, anywhere, supermarkets, any sort of venues, gyms, leisure centres, places like that, where people stay for a few hours, there really ought to be charging. And the other thing I found was, shame upon me, I took a flight a couple of weeks ago over to Dublin and went to park at Heathrow in the valet parking, and it's like, well, have you got charging points? Oh no, sorry. We used to do that before COVID, and now we don't do it anymore. Like, why wouldn't you? Again, my former employer, why wouldn't you at Heathrow Airport? It's an opportunity to make some money because the cost of charging on public charges is actually quite high. And if you're providing a service to your customers, why wouldn't you do it? So, there are some good examples and some not good examples.
There's actually two points here, Sean. The first one is, yes, you're right. There's a commercial aspect that can reward the community, because there are some sites where you're not an EV driver, but you may have the opportunity to install an EV charging point, allow access to people, which means you're doing a community thing. You're commercializing it, but you're not using it yourself, but you're allowing other people to use it. That's point number one. And I think the point number two is, like you described, there's various platforms out there that can give you charging point view. But the problem I've seen so far, and probably Mark will sort of confirm that as well, is that the problem, and that's why Manta Ray came about, is one of the reasons, is because there's no way of validating and verifying that they're a safe and secure and actually a point that's compatible to your vehicle or your platform of vehicle. And I think that's very important, that a lot of stories are scary stories where people actually try to book on one app and then they try to pay in another, and then when they go there, unfortunately there's a long queue, and then they go to the option B, that it doesn't work, and then option C is to be driven back home on a lorry kind of scenario. And it's interesting. It's getting better, but there's some horrible stories, and because of that, a lot of people have gone back to internal combustion engine. Hopefully not going forward, but there are some scary stories on the news and in the press regarding that. I don't know what your experience has been in your network of where you are.
Yeah, I've had some bad experiences. Certainly, again, up in the north of England, and I can't remember I probably shouldn't name the company that provided the charging points anyway. But it was actually, I thought it was great because it was at a hospital, and a family member was going in for some treatment. So I plugged into the charging point there, and I took about 3 attempts to get a charge. It was free. I thought, oh, fantastic! It wasn't very fast, but it was free. When I came to take my next charge on a public charging point, the car wouldn't take a charge at all. And I had to get a technician out the next day, and he was saying, well, what was it you were plugged into? And I explained, he said, oh, no, don't use them. And it actually fried my car. It stopped my car being able to charge at all. And thankfully, I managed to get a technician out to fix it. I didn't have to get it trailered home, as you say. And also, I'd have to say again, another of my former employers, Shell, my car just doesn't seem to work with charging points at Shell garages. And I've tried several, and I've rang up Shell and is it Jaguar? Oh, sorry, no, I don't think it really works with that. So yeah, the technology certainly leaves a bit to be desired, shall we say? And I have experienced some relatively serious problems with getting a public charge. So compatibility between charging point and car is still an issue. You kind of think it shouldn't be, but it is. But then I guess it's a fairly immature industry. So being able to have really better information about really what's out there, and also the capacity of these charging points get advertised. Oh, it's 350 kilowatt. You plug it in and you're pulling about 40. So there seems to be a lot of misinformation out there as well, and anything that helps us to be able to navigate around that, I think, is really beneficial.
I'm actually just Anita in the audience. She has an EV. Anita, do click raise your hand if you'd like to come up. There she is. She's in the Netherlands, so I think it might be interesting to hear what it's like.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Mark has joined us on stage, by the way. Mark is.
Yeah, well, nice to meet you, Sean. I was going to say, hi. One of the things that you mentioned earlier is that you plan your journeys. And I think one of the things that Manta Ray EV wants to do is to bring some of the 500,000 private chargers that sit at people's houses and businesses available to people, so that, because the reality is that I think a lot of the EV drivers today, it's getting better, are what I would call EV enthusiasts, and they have the propensity to plan things out and be a little bit nerdy about it. But the reality is to get mass adoption, to get everybody to drive one, it needs to be so easy that it doesn't need to be planned out. It can be a little bit more ad hoc, because there are plenty of people that are not as organized as you that still potentially want to drive an EV, and many of them do want to drive it, because the reality is the investment from the car manufacturers are going into those cars, not into the combustible range.
Yeah, regardless of what the government say, the investment is there. No, I think it's a great idea. I really do. And I mean, a couple of quite interesting examples. I live out in a tiny village in Northamptonshire now, and obviously I've got a charging point in my driveway. But I used to live in Maidenhead in Berkshire, and I had a charging point there. There was space for 2 cars on my drive, and I only had one, and it was within walking distance of the station. So anybody that was looking to commute into London from that part of the world could have driven to my house, parked to my driveway, plugged their car in, and gone up to town for the day. I was also talking to a local garage proprietor in the next village where I live, and he was talking about putting a charging point in. He's got a 3-phase supply, so he could put a fast charging point in if he wanted to do so. But there wasn't any means for him to attract customers, and there's loads of space as well. So, but there wasn't really any means for him to attract customers. He wasn't on a road where people would frequently pass. So, I think what I like about what you guys are doing is you are really opening up a potential market and making it easy for people. I mean, and I know similar initiatives like Park on My Drive have gone on before, where people can make their driveways available, and for a small fee, people can park on them if that's convenient to do so. But I think that additional availability of EV charging is something that could be really beneficial. As you say, it kind of opens up so many options to people to be able to park up somewhere that's convenient, plug in for a period of time, and even if you don't get a full charge, just get enough to get you home or get you to your next destination.
Can I just introduce Anita? Anita lives in the Netherlands. Anita, come on up and say hi.
Hi, Samantha. Hi, everyone.
Welcome.
Thank you.
So you have an EV. What's it like over there?
So I've had a hybrid since 2012, and I switched to full EV in 2017. And in the Netherlands, we actually have a splendid infrastructure. I have no problem charging my car wherever I go. Fortunately, I have quite a range, so I don't need to recharge it very often when I'm in the Netherlands, but I also took it abroad. And for instance, in Germany or in Belgium, it's no problem charging your car. It's maybe a little bit more, well, you have to do a little bit of research, because obviously in Germany, you can get in the middle of nowhere without a charging point. So there you have to watch. But my car has this functionality that when I use the route planner, then it signals me where I need to charge, and it points out where a charging point is. So it's super convenient, and I have no sticker stress, as we like to call it here in the Netherlands.
Thank you, Val. So I don't know if you speak Dutch or not, but
I do.
My mother's side is Dutch heritage. So I think one of the issues in the Netherlands is less about where to charge, but the fact that most people live in apartment blocks, and quite often do sharing of chargers in the parking spaces, in the parking garages that there are. And I was wondering if you had any experience of that, because I've talked to a local company in the Netherlands that specializes in sharing those charge points in the Netherlands, because, as you say, in the Netherlands it's difficult to be in the middle of nowhere, because that doesn't really exist in the Netherlands. My grandparents always used to say, when we went out for walks, try and find a place where you can't see a house. And there was no such thing. in the Netherlands. So, but I was wondering what your experience or knowledge is of the shared parking spaces and garages that most people live in the Netherlands.
I would say that there are now so many public spaces where you can charge your car, and that includes, I would say, public garages, supermarkets have chargers. The town where I live has rolled out double parking spaces to charge your car in, well, almost, I think, every 1,000 meters, every kilometer. In the development where I live, there are at least 5, so there are 10 public charging points, and I don't ever see cars waiting for the charging points. Although that will change as we completely shift the infrastructure. I think what has happened here that has worked really well is that very early on the government took an interest and they lowered the tax rate on EVs. But at the same time, they set up this infrastructure where we also had, like you mentioned earlier in the conversation, we have this combination. I have a charger at my house that I can also make available to the public. And that goes through the regular subscription. So you don't need to take out an additional subscription to use chargers at people's house. The subscription that I have with the electric company is available to me, but also to everyone. Now, I choose not to make it publicly available because it's actually right next to my house. And if a car parks there, I cannot park there, so that won't work very well. But across the street from me is an apartment building, and they can use the 2 public spaces that are there to charge cars. Now, I have to say that if you live in the middle of Amsterdam, it is probably a little bit difficult, or more difficult, even though there are charging points, there aren't enough there to charge everyone's car, simply because it's such an old town and it's not easy to, for instance, rewire parking garages underneath existing structures. But
or even terraced houses, because my grandparents
exactly
used to live in a terraced house in Den Haag.
Yeah.
Or
So
The Hague,
when it comes to those city centers, and there are a couple of them, it's really hard. But what you do see is then the city provides public spaces on the road to charge your car. So and since you typically don't have to charge it every day, and considering the amount of EVs that are driving around, I think the infrastructure is okay, could be better. But as soon as you are out of the city center, there are so many places to charge your car, it is not a problem at all.
Yeah, I think when adoption goes even more, Anita, I think having the ability to share, whether it's the public, some of the private charges, as you mentioned, especially when people are living in terraced houses or apartments where there are no associated garages or parking spots with it. It's on-street parking, and putting charging points on streets is something that in the UK you basically do. They put plugs into the lampposts, but again, it takes time to build that infrastructure up. And one of the things that Manta actually does in terms of allowing people to share their private chargers is for people that do live in apartment blocks or terraced houses and don't have the ability like you to put a charge point by their driveway or their parking spot, but still have an EV. And ultimately, we need to get everybody driving an EV. But the goal is, because our mission is to reduce carbon emissions in the world, and for me or for Manta Ray, that means getting more EVs on the road and getting more people to drive it. And as Sham mentioned earlier, getting people to know where public and private ones are, what the availability is, what the actual rating is that Sean says, it says 350, but it actually only pumps out 45 or 40. That's actually something you can work out with what's called car APIs. So every time a car plugs in with some technical magic, Anita, we can actually tell how much it's actually drawn from that charge point. And so that updates us, and we then keep a live real-time picture of, okay, this is actually 7 kilowatts, this is actually 30, even though it's advertised at 350. And we're looking to kind of simplify the whole experience. So when you arrive at a private charger, you're not trying to figure out what app and what cards or RFID or whatever it is that you need to do to kind of stop the charging and end the charging. It makes it a lot more simpler. So simplifying it, making sure that people that do use it are trusted, they're known, is also part of what we're looking to create. And look, I know that Netherlands is a much more sophisticated and a little bit further advanced. I knew that when many years ago I got a taxi from Schiphol, which and all taxis were Teslas.
Yeah.
So I knew even years ago that the Netherlands was going to go much further ahead. But it's a smaller country with a lot more people, and it always has this forward-looking attitude. So it's no surprise. But nevertheless, it's still, there's some way to go to get mass adoption of everybody driving EVs. So yeah, thank you for that insight.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Yeah, it's really interesting to hear how different countries are getting on over there. Sean, can I ask you a little bit more about those schools that you're talking about setting up in Ireland? Can we learn a little bit more about that? Because there are a few Irish in the audience as well. So.
Yeah, sure. So the Supply Chain Sustainability School is something that we started in 2012. It came as a result of Skanska coming to us, big Swedish construction company, coming to us as consultants to say, well, we want to be the most sustainable construction company in the world, but we've worked out that 80% of our revenue goes to our supply chain, and our supply chain is not competent to support our ambition. What can we do? And that's where we came up with the concept of a virtual learning environment where we can deliver learning at a huge scale, because the construction industry, along with many other industries, comprises a very small number of big players at the top of the value chain and a very large number of small businesses at the bottom. And reaching out to them is notoriously difficult. So what we did, we came up with this an online platform where people could access learning content. We started the school with 7 partners in the UK in 2012. We provide all of the learning that we provide for free. So the initial school was funded by the Construction Industry Training Board in the UK, but now it's funded by its partners. So the partners at the top of the value chain all put some money in, and we deliver everything we deliver for free. Where we've got to now in the UK is we have 205 partners, all contributing financially and shaping the direction of the school. Last year, we trained 24,000 people from around about 6,000 organisations. This is a model, because we've invested a lot in the technology platform that can do all sorts of amazing things. We believe it's a model that's exportable to other countries and also into other sectors. So we've had a school in Australia for some years now. We've got a school for off-site construction in France. And for the last 12 months or so, we've been having conversations with businesses that are partners in the UK school, but they either have interest in Ireland or they're Irish parented. And the real kind of champion organisation that's helped us to get this across the line is CISC. CISC are by a long way the largest construction contractor in Ireland, and they operate very internationally as well. And they're an interesting business because they're in the 5th generation of CISC. They're a family-owned business, which is quite unusual for a business that's so large. And they've really helped us to push it. They've brought a lot of stakeholders on board. So we said, well, if we can get 10 partners willing to participate, then we'll do the preparatory work, which we have. We're now actually up to 14 partners have agreed to join the Irish school. So supplychainschool.ie is live. That web domain is live at the moment, just with a holding page and a call to action for people who want to get involved and a bit of information about what the school's going to be, while we build the functionality and the content, because obviously a lot of what we teach in the UK is generic, about carbon, about wastewater, whatever. But in different countries, of course, the legislation is different, the policy is different. So we're needing to Irishize some of our content and record a lot of videos from our partners and that sort of thing. And we'll be launching in January. The Irish school will go live online in January.
And for you, Mark and Sham, for people in the audience, is there any way that they can get involved with Manta Ray? And tell us more actually about Manta Ray, what you're trying to do, and the brand ambassador program. And if people want to sign up, what do they get and all of that? Mark.
Yeah, no worries. I think the key thing is if I just go back slightly a bit more, is the app is trying to make a safe, secure way of charging and integrating the infrastructure, public and private, together is our aim. And the aim is to create a community. And the ambassador program is about bringing your community to the platform. So trying to create a waiting list of ambassadors who are going to be there to promote, in the sense, make awareness rather than promoting, is what we're looking for, is to have like-minded individuals who are worried about the environment and their next generation and how it's impacting. Is creating that awareness that there are solutions out there that can help them. And being part of that ambassador program, just helping people educate that there's a safe, secure way of adopting to EV and being able to plan, seamlessly, and be able to charge seamlessly and safely, and being able to not worry about it. Just like, we know wherever we go, there's always a petrol station somewhere. We want to have the same sort of mindset with people, have a worry-free, troublesome experience, really. And we're trying to create that sort of ethos on our community, on our platform, through our ambassador program. And being part of that program will give, overall various benefits for a certain period of time and certain sort of revenue sharing opportunities, which is all elaborated on our website when you join. And it will give you a unique code to use and share. But the idea behind it is to drive that community more than anything. Mark, is there anything you wanted to add that I may have not covered already? That'd be helpful.
No, I think you pretty much covered, but I wanted to just say why we exist and what we do. So very simply put, we exist because I saw coral reefs dying, and I put it down to global warming. And I was tired of working for corporates and making them money, so I decided to do a startup and fix the world at the same time. So that's the lofty ambition. The more real ambition is, it's basically an Airbnb-inspired marketplace where there are hosts which share their private chargers, whether that's a business or residential, with the EV driving public. So in the same way as you rent out a room or an apartment, you're renting out your charger. And Sean mentioned earlier that he had 2 parking spots in a good location. And if you're a host, being in a good location is key. A bit like real estate, location is the thing. So that if you're near a touristic spot, you're near a public transport, as Sean suggested, or even the NEC. And by the way, the NEC, Sean was lucky because they literally just installed that. I saw the announcement that they installed all these chargers into the NEC. Before that, it was like an InstaVolt in the corner, and you were lucky if it worked or not. Those dozens of rows of chargers is a recent addition in the NEC, so you were lucky. But being near a touristic spot, so example, we talked to a council. It was a seaside town up in the north. I think they call it Little Scarborough or something. And they only had 2 7-kilowatt public chargers in the car park, because the cost of getting the grid to that seaside town was in the millions, and so the council couldn't put any more public chargers in there. And private residents and businesses that did have chargers there could easily share their chargers to make that town attractive for people with EVs to drive there and spend the day there. And as Sean mentioned, I'm actually speaking at, I forgot what the title of the conference is, Samantha, I'm sorry. So basically a hospitality and retail conference this week in Dublin on Thursday. And they have a whole panel based on talking about putting EV chargers in front of their businesses. And this is very much, something that, again, Manta Ray can bring the whole community to their doorstep, spend time not only charging up on their charge point, but also spending time in their businesses actually making money. So the goal is, there's a disparity of public charging points. So I don't know, Sean sounds like he lives in the south, which is lucky for him, because in the southeast of the UK, there's plenty of charging points. A bit like Anita, it's a a condensed area. But the rest of the country is not blessed like that. And there's only about 45,000 public charge points. And there's roughly about 500,000 charge points in the UK. And it's bridging those things together, as Sham says. That's our goal. That's what we want to do. And we're about to launch. We're probably a couple of months away from launching. And we're trying to build up a waiting list of users that are interested in having that bigger choice on a trusted platform. And obviously, we're looking for influencers, ambassadors, as Sham says, to bring their following and their community to join with us to kind of create this Airbnb-inspired marketplace.
Brilliant. Yeah, I love this. And Mark, just the name of the conference. The name of the company. I looked at all these other companies in this space, and it was Electro this and Charge this and Verse. It was all this reference to electricity in some shape or form. Yeah.
Spark this and so on. Bearing in mind that my motivation behind this was scuba diving and seeing the reefs die. Literally, I was there one year off the coast of Mexico, and all the staghorn coral the following year was pretty much gone, and it affects the marine life that are around that. And believe it or not, the ocean and especially plankton is actually, which is an offshoot from coral reefs, is actually a huge carbon sink, even more so than planting a tree or a forest. And so one of the things that still eludes me as a diver is seeing a manta ray alive. So I decided to call the company Manta Ray EV. So that's where it comes from.
I love that. And the event that you're speaking at next week is in Dublin, and it's the Food, Retail and Hospitality Conference. And you're going to be speaking on a panel about the role of EVs in convenience retail. So that's really exciting. So well done, Mark. Yeah, so definitely. I know that Sean, we have been recording this, and Sean has kindly, because he's an ambassador, he's kindly agreed to make it a podcast and put it on their website. What's that website if you want people to have a look at it there, Sean?
Yes, that's www.iso2400, so 20,400.org. That's our not-for-profit site where we share lots of learning around sustainable procurement. And we have a podcast series that we call Sense and Sustainability, which is available on 20 different popular podcast channels.
Oh, I love that name. Say it again, the name of the podcast?
Sense and Sustainability.
Oh, send me the link to that, Sean. I
will, yeah.
It's a great name, isn't it, folks? Sham, have you anything you want to add before we finish up?
No, thank you everyone for joining. And Sean, it's really been a pleasure talking to you on a heart to heart. It's something we're very passionate about, and you've been in this game for a longer in schooling and nurturing, as an impact. So I'm really looking forward to what this is going to bring in the environment around us. So thank you for joining and contributing. Really do appreciate your time.
And Mark, did you want to add something before we finish?
No, I think that's pretty much it. I'd like to thank Sean very much. I'm not sure I've met somebody with an OBE before, but maybe I have. I don't remember. So it was a pleasure. Thank you.
Thanks very much, and thanks for inviting me. I've enjoyed it.
Yeah, thanks a million, Sean. You're very good. And for anyone who's interested, we do this LinkedIn audio series every week, every Tuesday at 1 p.m. UK time. And if anyone is interested in Manta Ray, if you just go to the website, mantarayev.com, sign up to be on the wait list, sign up to hear what's next. I think this is going to be big. And if you want to be part of it, and you know anyone who might want to be an ambassador who has a charging point at their home, definitely they will be interested in this. So thank you so much, and have a great day, everybody, and enjoy the rest of your week.
Thank you for listening to our podcast on Sense and Sustainability. Please listen out for more episodes. For more information, learning resources, tools, and much more content on sustainable procurement, go to www.iso2400.org.